So I have a nice new set of carbide rotary files. Probably made in China. I got them from New Jersey. US stock. The one I figure I'm going to need is the main burr. These things feel like they're fucking sharp as hell. It's got a nasty little end on it. And what I'm aiming for is to get inside of here and hopefully make, because this surface right here was getting rubbed on. Shit, this. It's gonna be gone in a second. I'm fucking grinding away. The inside edge to make it in a little bit, to make it grab these teeth here a little bit, which I'm gonna, instead of being straight, I'm gonna dovetail them in that way, because the edges, and I know it's hard to see on the camera probably, that right there is an edge that's gone on most of these, right there. That's where it's been hitting, you know, not engaging all the way and starting to get fucking slammed in there. Blah, not fucking working. I'm probably gonna get fucking filings all over this. Maybe I'll put a rag over it. Hopefully not catch the rag and send my fucking hand flying and shit. But that's the plan. Because this is first gear and that one looks like the worst. Second gear, this is second gear, and it looks pretty good. You know, there's like almost absolutely no wear on those. And I took the washer that was from here and I put it in between there, so that makes it come together even further now. So that should be a solid connection, I feel, and I'm not going to dick around with that one. I'm going about this in a slightly conservative, almost half-assed way. But they're already coated with oil, so I'm not too worried about fucking that up. Give me a second to prepare. I'm going to wrap something around this just so I don't get shit everywhere. Make sure I got my safety glasses. I don't like getting shit in my eyes. I'm going to go at it at this angle, and hopefully I can get it slightly like that. We're going to see what the fuck happens. In there with a different one then. Let's see what we can do. This one might have been the first one. Fuck. I don't know, dude. Alright, we'll try this one. The pineapple shaped one. Attempt to get a better view here. So what I was aiming for was not to trim the edge of the lip anymore, because it may be a little bit rounded, but at least it's the stronger part of the metal that's still left there. But to take that inner edge and grind it flat so it was a little more straight up and down. So I got that one, got that one, got that one, that one, and then that one. So those are all good. It's really hard to see how they're just very slightly more straight up and down now. Now, who knows if this is going to make a difference. It may just work, or it may, like, hopefully not work any worse, because I never saw this bike running. All I'm doing is hopefully making a preventative measure. And this is second gear, which I'm not going to fuck with. Not going to fuck with it. Alright, so that's supposedly the second gear fix. The washer and grinding shit down. Well, this was first gear, remember. That's second gear. Second gear goes into fifth. I'm gonna clean the hell out of this because I just got shavings all over the fucking place. That could be a killer. And my starter clutch that I got in, I came in and I opened it, and one of the dowels was fucking missing. It was in the bottom of the bag, so whatever. It was funny because I turned it and it still latched, so I guess it does work. I'm gonna compare it tightly to that one. Give me a minute, maybe I'll clean it up and I'll show it, see if it worked any better. So I took a closer look at the second gear here, and I kind of realized after closer inspection that maybe there was some slippage on it, because when I had it together and I tried to twist it and pull it, that it had actually taken a little bit of that inner kind of lip off, and so I guess I figure it wouldn't hurt just to try to grind these since I'm having some success with it, and whatever. I figure if I don't do whatever I can, it's not doing enough. I just probably need the other burr. As much as I think I'm willing to do. So the angle is ever so slight. I kind of did like a bump on a few of them, but let me go take it and clean it off. This is what I did, cleaning. Whoa, got hooked. Come in here to my kitchen with some of my artwork. Just get in here, degreaser, get the grease off, get most of the metal particles off. I got acetone in here. Way cheaper than fucking carb cleaner. Let that get more particles off and grease and shit. Now it looks really, really clean. I can kind of tell. It's pretty clean right now. You can see, shit's all gone. And relube. DVD 40. Alright, my gloves are falling apart. So, take it back over there. So, now I gotta put this bitch in here.
Victims of that flooding have filed suit against the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers specifically, over how the government managed Houston's main reservoirs during the storm. Cases regarding the implication to across the country for who's liable when disaster strikes. that Houston public media
Grips pretty good that way.
On a normal day when Houston's not underwater, the Barker Reservoir is the perfect spot for a bike ride. The reservoir in a similar one is usually dry.
It's probably about as good as I'm gonna get. I don't feel like dogging this. It's already got the washer moved, so it's in there.
My sister-in-law, the entire neighborhood is in the reservoir, so she flooded.
That's right, there are homes in the reservoirs. Welcome to Houston. Most of the reservoir land is federally owned, but some of it's private. So rows and rows of large suburban homes and gated neighborhoods.
Oh, and I fell. Yeah, shit makes me wonder, should I grind that or not? I really don't think I should. It's probably about as good as it's gonna get. It's in there.
Our home should never have been built. Tim Shower owns one of those houses, which he says took on more than a foot of water thanks to the storm. He and his wife escaped by wading through brown, sewage-filled water while dodging floating mounds of fire ants and snakes.
Find out
How years ago, when he was
second
going to
gear
check
sucks
out
or not.
the realtor, the car went over a little hill, and I said, "Did we just go over a dam?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, but that was built back in the 30s, and they didn't know what they were doing, and it'll never flood. This whole area, the engineers allowed us to build because it'll never flood." Shower isn't suing, but those near him who are say the government decided to take their property by letting water fill up the reservoirs and flood the homes inside.
I mean, you can see there's not like
Reservoirs are suing too.
wear, like too much on it. Like I thought that what the wear that I saw was that little lip right there. See, there's a lip, but there's a gouge out of it. There's a gouge out of it. I don't know if that was the sign that this was already coming out, because I didn't see wear on the top edge, so that made me think that it wasn't having an issue.
Justice Department lawyers argue that it was impossible to avoid flooding somebody's home. The homeowners, for their part, say the flooding was essentially a land taking, like when a government entity takes private property to build roads or bridges. Peter Burns at Georgetown Law
It seemed a good grab, really.
He says the homeowners may have a tough time arguing this case fits that definition.
There is a long tradition in takings law, even outside of the flooding time, that emergency.
Hell, maybe I should sand it down.
Prevent
Anyway, I sanded it down a little bit better just so it was a little smoother, and I was managing to twist it and get it to. It won't grab that one; it just moves the whole thing. But I was able to forcefully kind of turn it and then try to get it to tug, and it'll grab a little. It'll grab. So, given my washer move and that, we're gonna hope for the best. I'm hoping for the best. Next thing, I'm gonna clean that bastard. I don't even know if I need to make a video showing that. Take a starter clutch apart. It's fucking easy. Just give you a quick. The gear on the front slides into this part, comes right out, and then you see there's the gears. This one's got dusty shit in it, so I'm gonna clean it. But you see the spring, that'll come right out, and then goes in the dowel and the pin, wherever you call it. And this one actually looks dirtier than the other one that I had, but you never know. Well, it might be working better, so we're gonna go for it. Yep, going for it. Thanks. So this is probably gonna be a bumbling fucking mess. Anyway, I cleaned this whole bastard out. The last thing I'm gonna do is, when I end up getting every piece in, there wasn't too much in the bottom half here. It was really just the gear, the gears, the forks, the idler, the shaft, and the middle gear, and fuck, I don't remember if the middle gear goes on the other part. Actually, the middle gear goes in the other part, because I got my book over here and I'm just kind of, it's coming back to me now. How did I take it apart?
time is always short. You never feel like you have.
I have to remember how the fuck these goddamn gears came in.
It's at night or
So this is gonna be a shit show. Cause I think, according to the picture, if there's this bolt here, that means the big gears go here. Yes, that's where the big gears go. So, I don't think I can get it in upright. Kind of have to go in this way. It's gonna be a shit show. I might actually have to take off two of the gears to get it in. I think that's kind of what you gotta do. Ah, boy. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Alright, take out these two gears. Set them down somewhere. Smells like WD-40. Smells really good.
One of the biggest messages of this film is that we humans are part of nature. That's what you realize when you look at the four elements in the context of humanity. We're not separate from nature. We've been taught for thousands of years that we're separate and we're looking in on nature. But I've come to realize, and the broader science that's around me has come to realize, we are in nature, not disjointed.
In nature.
So, in a way, I would like to think of this
So, maybe I can have the gears in there like this and still get it in. I thought they fell out when I was trying to put it in, and that kind of made me think that I was supposed to take them out.
Extraction, both of those kinds of things, dreaminess and selfishness, are juvenile. And I think the core issue of humanity for our time, at least as regards the environment, and also as regards human health,
This
and a lot of
going
other things,
up
is that we
in.
need to grow out of those old patterns of thinking and grow into a more sophisticated, more complex
Carefully,
of what we are in
this
relationship to nature.
goes into.
James Baylor, thanks so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
James Baylor's work is the subject of the new climate change documentary, The Human Element. The film is now available for streaming on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, and other digital platforms. He spoke with Fresh Air's Dave Davies, who is also WHYY's
How close is it?
After we take a short break, look at Maureen Carvin,
dude.
a new collection of autobiographical essays by Emily
see what's
Bernard
the fuck's
called
going on.
Black is the Body. This is Fresh Air.
This is your NPR station, WBFO.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. What would you do if you had to stop using the apps on your phone for 30 days?
Ah, there you go.
Told me that during the first
Okay.
week, she was so used to checking her phone for new information that after she took all of the apps off for this declutter, she found herself compulsively checking the weather app. Author Cal Newport has
Okay. The last thing I did was read these instructions here. Remove the, let's see.
Meet your favorite PBS Kids characters and participate in awesome activities.
Remove the bolt washer with an impact, then the pivot, then I pivot the countershaft assembly up and carefully remove it. That was the last step. Installation. Prior to installation, coat all bearings and surfaces with assembly oil. Install the countershaft assembly. Install the washer, bolt, and tightened 51 newtons. Have an assistant place a shock rag into the gears and hold it while you're tightening the bolt. So, got it. The shaft assembly. That's that. And my bag right here with the bolt washer. Bolt washer.
Bernard's language is fresh, poetically compact, and often witty.
She writes about growing up black in the South and living black as an adult in the snow-globe state of Vermont.
I don't know if I got it in there all the way. Because it's not really reaching. That was it, huh? Huh. You're funny.
In her introduction, Bernard tells us that this book was conceived
Was it supposed to go, like, over further? I think so, because this big friggin' gear here is, like, not engaged with this thing too well.
You don't hear every day, but shock value is the least of the reasons why Bernard shares it with us. Instead, the visceral reality of her scarred, winding intestines.
I'll put it up so you can see. I'm battling with trying to get specific stuff. This right here came off the countershaft. It's one gear. And I'm trying to keep it engaged with, oh my god, there's shit in it.
Through her writing, Bernard says, she wanted to contribute something to the American racial drama besides the enduring narrative of black innocence and white guilt. There are other true stories I needed to explore. The only way I knew how to do this was by letting the blood flow and following the trail of my own ambitions.
So, trying to keep your gears together while you're putting it in.
One of the best is an essay called Teaching the N-Word, in which Bernard
Maybe I want to have this upside down to try to get this in. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God.
All of the 11 students are white. The expected way this essay would unfold would be for Bernard to poke gentle fun at these liberal white students whose refusal to say the N-word doesn't absolve them from their own unconscious racism.
Come on, get on. Get on, damn it. Alright, it's back on.
Got yourself a nice essay. But Bernard has been through that life-altering knife attack. She doesn't do what's expected. Instead, much of this confessional essay focuses on her own moments of self-deception.
Does that seem to be out of alignment? Because it's probably supposed to be the one that's past this. I see now. That's why fifth, this is, I don't know how hard this is to see, fifth has to go past that one, and I gotta get it back on, because first has to be on the shaft.
Again, mostly white students, that this material is not the exclusive property of students of color. This is American.
Maybe that's why they removed the kick gear. They're doing this. Huh? Oh.
But to us readers, Bernard admits feeling claims to this literature that are less democratic.
Come on, baby.
I give this part of my lecture, but not always. Sometimes I give it and then regret it later. Another essay that complicates thinking about race is called Interstates. The opening situation reads like an updated version of the film The Green Book. Bernard, her wife, then fiance John, and her parents
maybe I'm just gonna flip it fucking this way. Oh. Okay, do that. Now it's in. Whew. That was funny. That was fucking hilarious. Yep. It'll slide around. This will slide around. Okay, so. So now this is lined up, and I can get the countershaft bolt, or whatever the fuck they call it. Countershaft. It's called the washer. And they say to hold it like before with a shop rag. And shop rags are Not easy to find in here anymore. They kind of disappeared.
One of those haunting
Got lots of,
discussions about race that Bernard conducts in her classrooms.
we got
In Black is the
cigarette
Body,
butts and shit on
Bernard
it.
proves herself to be a revelatory
I don't remember what size bolt it has on it. It has a 14. Hold on. 14. So I've got something that works so that when I turn the bolt, I got this into one of the gears with the rag there, and it stops it from turning this way. So I'm going at it, and my tool isn't ready still. My torque wrench only goes up to 40, and I'm kind of pissed about that. Because I got this one because I thought I had to get into tight spaces all the time. Should have bought the bigger torque wrench. So I'm sort of going to be guessing. What's up above? How am I supposed to even put 40 torque pounds on this? I might just use the impact wrench and just fucking send it. So that's what 40 feels like. So that means it's gotta be a lot fucking tighter than that. So, if that's the case, I will grab a 14 wrench and fucking hammer it a little bit. See how that feels. Frankly, I'm not worried about this bolt coming out. I don't think I am. Put my chest on that. That's gotta be like 50 fucking 1 pounds. Cool. Slides around okay. Ain't going nowhere. Alright. That's 50 foot-pounds of torque. No. I have some of this stuff, and I'm going to be using it occasionally. The Lubriplate 105 assembly grease. I'm going to put it into places like these gears and here and in there and in the dogs where they go, and here, here, and here, and there, fucking anywhere I can think of. Eventually I'm going to put it into the cam bearings, or the, you know, the cams, but for now I'm just plugging it up in the spots that I care about, where I know there may not be oil to begin with. Because the oil is kind of, I don't think it's at this level. I think it's like at this level. So it might be in the gears, but it won't be into the bearings for the, or in the shift drum. It won't be in the shift drum yet. I guess I cleaned it okay. What's next? The shit on this side of it. Okay. That way. Stupid-ass torque wrench. Go to this side. Okay. The other part that I took out, got in the bag now, was the forks. And of course, this wonderful thing, which is a little bit dirty now. Some slightly clean towelettes here. I love that it's got the little oil hole, so I guess it fills it somewhere in there. It's not too dirty. Okay. One battlefield. Trump sounds dumb every time he talks. And don't forget your circlip. That's for the end of the bearing. Now remember, they were numbered, and my lighter got put somewhere. The number was, I'll just move this over here so you can read it. So 1, 2, and 3. The 2, 1, and 3 are the lower ones, or no, are the lower ones that actually go into these gears, and 2 is the one that goes up. And they all do have to be on that shaft, so I'll have to put them in that order after I start sliding it in.
He says the new legislative leadership and governor are pushing through a rapid succession of bills, and it's clear there already are two in the works, with upstate no longer...
Oh, I forgot to install the Crankshaft bearing housing. That's important. Alright, before I do the dogs then, the forks. Bearing housing. Ooh, it's got lots of oil on it. Now, I think it goes probably this way because, well, the B's on it that way, which would make me think that it goes up this way, but the holes only line up one certain way. So, there's a hole that, this hole meets a hole that goes right into there. So I think that's reasonably enough to assume. Yep, that's gotta be it. Can't think of any other way it would go. Just can't think of it. Just don't know. Just don't know. Oh boy.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Amazon Web Services.
I'm putting it in crooked. That doesn't help.
Or helping enterprises reinvent their industries. AWS works to help technology scale to meet the challenge. More at awsishow.com.
The joint legislative budget hearing on elementary and secondary education takes place today in the wake of sobering budget news delivered earlier this week that the state is $2.3
Nope,
billion
that's not good.
short, and that the governor's executive budget cannot be sustained by the revenue coming in. Senator
I had oil on it.
Schaaf, the chair of the Senate
Oh,
Education
shit.
Committee, joins us in the studio. It's always good to see you. Good morning, pleasure to be here. So, will you be looking at the education budget through a new lens now that?
Alright, I gotta be ginger with this.
$2.3 billion hole.
Well, I'm deeply concerned. I started already by being deeply dissatisfied with what the governor had put on the table.
Come back
It
off.
was really inadequate to begin to meet the needs of students.
Initially, the governor had put out almost $1 billion.
This is embarrassing.
For state aid. And you're saying now with the $2.3 billion, that $1 billion wasn't enough to begin with.
It wasn't enough, and I focused on the $338 million of foundation aid, of which
Shit.
the region said
Shit,
over $1
shit,
billion
shit,
in
shit.
foundation aid was the right amount. Was the amount not only that was owed, I happen to believe it is owed, but also that is what schools need. So will you start with that, and then you go around and visit and talk to superintendents, as I have done since I was named chair. It's not an abstract thing. This is
Trying to
a
line up
real
the hole.
problem where particular schools really are struggling to meet the needs of their students, particularly schools with high incidence of poverty, a lot of English language learners, special needs class. There are extraordinary circumstances that have changed since 10 years ago when we tried to figure out a way out of this mess. And honestly, we need more money. So yes, I'm deeply troubled and concerned.
Holes do still line up. Yep.
Not make education a place where this burden is felt. So when
He talks about the foundation formula. He says things like, it's a vestige of the past, and but when you think about what the formula
Okay.
does, which is
Yep.
steer
Holes line up
money
perfectly.
to schools with the greatest need. It's just an equity calculation.
That still turns.
Shouldn't that still be
Good.
in the formula?
Well, that should be the underlying principle of how we fund schools. You know, Susan, at the end of the day, we need to get away from property tax being the way schools are funded. That's a fundamental inequity. But for now, right now we need to steer money towards immediate schools.
These are
And
the
fact
bolts.
is, we
And
have to
they
work
were
our way
Torx.
around the formula. And I'll take you to
Which I also have to find.
obviously
Now, I
not
don't
this
think
tremendous
it had
learning every year.
Loctite on them, but I do
The thing we
have
need to convey.
some blue Loctite, which is what they used on all the other torque bits on here. And they took a while to screw these out, so I thought maybe I had some Loctite anyway. Can't tell if there's a little bit of blue tinge. Maybe that would have been a hint that it did. Just gotta find my fucking Torx bit. Ugh. Give me a minute, I gotta find that. I'll just put a little bit of Loctite on it. Not gonna go crazy with it. Probably should have been cleaned so it actually does something, but I know that shit gets hardened in there no matter what. Got my number 30 Torx bit.
Deciding how schools spend money on a school-by-school basis is the essence of local control, and we really ought not to take that away.
Oh, it does say apply Loctite. Huh, or equivalent.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that last year
That's
some
cool.
school districts, the larger
I was
ones,
right.
did have to report
Alright,
their school
put the
by
blue
school,
shit on.
allocation.
I just read the
Governor
manual and
made
it said to do that.
Put that into statute this year.
Well, it's going to be extended statewide to every school. And, again, I'm less troubled. I think it's burdensome, and we ought to make it as least burdensome as possible. But at the end of the day, I think the thing is we ought not to use it in a punitive way. Let's use it to have a thoughtful conversation about why particular schools are better than others.
And you feel that he's doing this in a punitive way.
Well, I think the concept that we will direct you how to use the money, and you must use it at these schools, that's not the way we should run a school district, a school board, or how parents should feel that all of them decide whether their school gets money.
So, in your mind, I just want to clarify.
And
Which is more
doesn't
important,
say
the
what
assessment
torque
of how
to put them
districts
on.
divvy up state funding per school, or how much the state divvies up taxpayer
Very
money per
lately.
district?
Well, the first thing is how the state divvies up.
Very
money.
lately.
That's the essence of equity. I live in Yamaha.
Really? So now,
Next door to Eastchester.
quarter.
One student who lives on my side of the line, just have a really
Quarter, or not even a
slightly
quarter.
different educational opportunity than the child
Quarter.
who lives on the other side.
Whoop.
Simply because
There goes my bit.
Yonkers gets, has real structural problems in getting into higher education. Eastchester has
So,
a higher property tax base. That's an
now,
example of a fundamental inequity. The
Crankshaft.
state begin to fix, and they have
I'm gonna
problems
lube
with
this
young
bitch up
just have, we are not
and put
there.
oil
We need
into
to
the
fix
hole.
The fundamental problem is we need more money on the table. And that's
Lots of
why
oil in the
system
shaft.
has been introduced.
I got 1030 weight in here.
Disappointed with the amount that is out there for
Probably doesn't
foundation
matter.
aid. Disappointed with some of the other proposals about building aid and other things which are efforts to clamp down on what districts do in terms of renovating buildings, improving the structure.
That comes like
So,
dangerously
that's the
close to
number
that
one
gear.
issue. The secondary
It's
issue
funny
is
because it
funding
actually
districts.
hits the gear,
First issue is let's put enough money on the
which
table.
is funny. Oh, because right here there's a cutout. Wow, I didn't even know that. Okay, so anyway, I'm done being amazed at things that you notice. So you can't turn the gear while it's not in all the way. So don't be freaked out. Clean these fuckers off. I thought they looked pretty good. So this is numero 3, which is the first one that I put on, according to the diagram. And I just gotta get it. Uh-oh, I lost the page. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Number 3. Come on. Come on. Alright, so and it goes facing... according to the picture, it sort of looks like it's facing down, like this. Back this out a little bit. Get it in there, and here's number 3. And here's is number 2.
I believe there are some additional sources of revenue that could be on the table besides taxes.
I'm only cleaning it just to get shit off because I probably have a filthy ass garage. This one goes probably like this, I'm assuming, because that way all the numbers are facing the same direction, which is a pretty good assumption, I think. Not gonna lose that page, god damn it. That goes through there. Okay, that's in. Because that's gonna.
We did pass a permanent, and I personally believe that most people conceptually thought it was 2%.
This weird feeling that it's not the right way.
Very legitimate thing.
You know what?
For real people on the ground,
I don't think I got it in there the right way.
when it isn't, and it's
I
not.
think it's supposed to go
We thought we had a different
facing up,
So I'm very
which is against my
towards that. But I
previous
think
assumptions.
overall, we need to begin to examine
But
how
it
we
won't go
work
into
with
that
other states.
hole unless I had it
We have found ourselves
this.
in, and every year this battle for more money and facing economic ups and downs.
Are you considering moving on this year, this session?
Well, we're going to get through.
I really hope that's the right way. I hope it is. I really hope it is, because if this is here, I just hope this is the right way. Yeah, that can't be in any other way. It's so fucking weird. Looking at the picture, it's got that little bit sticking up. Yeah, and the other one's facing down. Okay, sure. Position forks on the camshaft assembly and the shaft drum. Slide the shaft fork shaft in all the way. Each fork has its number casting 1, 2, 3, 4 for reference 59 for correct placement. Sure. Make sure the pin. So I can show you what I mean. Make sure the pin followers are installed into each shift fork prior to installation. Fork number 2 shift fork must be positioned up as it fits into the main shaft assembly. Align the pin in the shift fork shaft, figure 60. The pin. Align the pin with the slot in the crankcase. There's a slot right there. So that pin is probably so that this doesn't turn, and that right there is facing the correct way. After selling it, check that the relief on the shaft is positioned correctly so that the middle drive gear on the camshaft clears it. Cool. So those manuals are nice. Alright, so I did get that right. Cool. Cleaning off number 1. Okay.
It's just one of a handful of bills that immigration rights advocates are pushing this session, and today we're going to discuss a few others with Pamela Chamba, who is the Director of State Immigration Campaigns for Forward.us, which is FWD.us, but don't say that or else Pamela will laugh at you. Welcome, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me here.
So tell us about Forward.us.
Yeah, Forward.us was founded in 2013 by tech
Gets hung up on the gear a little bit. That was what was making me worry. So this here is going to turn and go to the slot right there. Alright. That right there is just a spinning, idling fucking thing. That's kind of funny. Okay. Alright. And after that, now it says install a new circlip on the shaft, on the shift fork shaft. Okay. Was there 2 circlips on this? I can't believe that. Alright. So, it doesn't tell me to look at a new circlip. 53, number 53. Oh, going back to another page. Figure 53. Numbers. Yep, right there. So, the next circlip has to go on there. I don't have any new circlips, so I'm just putting the old one back on.
It's important because they're part of our community. You know how many years
I don't know which way is the best way to go.
a child from K or pre-K through 12?
So the taxpayers have already invested in this person.
Yes, they're investing in this person. This person wants to give back by just having more access to their education. Maybe be a teacher, you know, in New York City public schools. Maybe actually be an engineer in rural areas, so we can talk about farmers as well. So there's many possibilities of dreamers who wanted to give back.
And it's not going anywhere, and the gear can just make it. Okay, next part. Flip the page, see what it says. The next part is install the main shaft assembly in the lower crankcase half. Main shaft assembly? Huh? What? In the lower crankcase. Oh, figure 62. 62. Oh, they're telling me to go into the other end of the bike and put that in there. Well, man, my toes are getting cold. Middle gear drive. I guess that's what they think is it for this. Except I wanted them to tell me to put on the shifter, because I thought that I was supposed to get the shifter in there. 1 through 17, crankcase assembly. Yeah, they kind of skipped over the fucking gears. Pfft. Whatever. You dicks. All this crap. Clutch transmission. Start clutch. Neutral. Shifter. Come on, tell me how to put that back in. Yeah, I see that. I know. You guys are fucking jerks. Okay, so I just gotta probably go backwards because it's gonna tell me to do this in reverse. Ugh, crap. Alright, well, thanks guys. Okay, this funny little thing, which does have the circlip in it. I thought it was going to snap out. Boop, boop, boop. It goes on this way. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. That's going to go kind of like... I'm doing my best to try to get this stuff on the camera. Should put some... Oh, it's probably got plenty of oil in it. This thing right here is covered in oil. Oh. This goes over here. Yep, that's the angle that it goes at. Okay. Yep. Down.
Some Democrats really wanted to take back the Senate, and David
There's no,
this is the right moment.
I wonder what this little pin down here at the bottom of it is for. Let's see how it lines up. Oh, this thing got so dirty. Jesus. Good job, Peach.
There's no scenario where someone just hands out driver's licenses, right? Just the same test. What will mark the difference is that it just grants access so that when you're applying for a driver's license, you do not have to have a social security number, which is a major difference. You still have to have some kind of ID, right? Like this shit to say you are this person.
Get the shit to say you are this person.
Is concern on the right-hand side of the spectrum that these licenses could be used to, for example, illegally vote.
I'm going to address this, and I hope that it doesn't come up again.
I mean, I don't want to talk about it, bitch.
Individuals access to the ropes. They need to pass a test, and in that license, it actually says not for federal purposes.
Just
Not for federal purposes.
to drive.
To drive and to, have a property. You know how many parents actually send their kids off to different SUNY schools with the hope that their child, many of them DACA recipients, can actually provide for their families 4 years later, but they can visit them when that child needs them. They can go to ceremonies.
That'll work.
They don't feel safe. They drive,
It's fine, there's nothing that holds this on. That's probably why they don't want you to put it on now. But I'm doing it.
Not only to the
Circlip
community, but also to the
goes right there.
Can you make that connection for us?
Yeah, and we actually have some numbers. In the first year alone, we will have an increase of $57 million in combined annual revenues for the state.
I can't stand some accents.
Where does that money come from?
That money comes from. People are giving back to their at the GMV.
There we go.
Comes from the access
It's back on.
jobs that they can have.
Okay.
Because they can now drive an extra
That's not going anywhere.
minutes,
All right.
to get to their
Now,
That comes from the
I think it
facility
wants me to
because
go
the
back
noise
around
will not have to hear,
to.
encountering enforcement and
I hope that was it. Oh yeah, the other was the special oil pump, which now I know puts shit into the camshaft. I didn't realize that's what it was for. That's after you put the top half on the special oil pipe, whatever. All right, moving this bitch out of the way, and we're gonna move on to this bastard. I have to flip it over, get some better light on it. Had this thing over it. Where's my wife? Okay. I'll flip that and we'll get back into it. So I hope I'm not confusing people when I'm going upside down and right side up. I'm recutting the video. I might end up fixing it. I don't know for sure. I've gone and put in the assembly lube into the bearings for like the main shaft and shit like that. I did it on the other side of the case. My glove is ripping already. Cheap ass shit. And I remember when I was taking it apart what was in here. They told me to put the middle bearing in the main shaft or whatever it was in the other end of the case. Maybe just to see if they fit in right, but I know that the middle gear was here, the other gear shaft was here, the starter clutch was down in here, and the high-low chain and the crankshaft was in. So I'm going to put in the crankshaft and see how that goes. I gotta remember where the seals are too. And I also have to have this camera ready to
The evolution rather than the revolution that a lot of Democrats on the left propose.
Let's get this in
One
good
of
view.
those areas are taking a much slower, more careful approach to with their finger on the pulse or whatever cliche you want to use. Their stethoscope to their voters is on the recreational marijuana. And what we've seen out on Long Island is that
now,
a large
I don't remember which way it goes either.
Shite.
Fuck. Oh, okay. Cam chain goes through here, high low goes right there. So I gotta flip it around this way. Oh my god, it's heavier than I thought. I don't remember it being this fucking heavy.
Boards of trustees and village mayors are also putting the brakes on it. Now, the villages, most of the villages have sort of accepted that they can't outright ban it, but they can put a lot of restrictions on it. So they're putting it out in industrial parks and other places where they feel that there'll be, no heavy traffic, particularly with kids. In other words, make it much more difficult to get to. And they're concerned. Some of them have
squishing
health
my
concerns.
hand in it.
I think I mentioned on a
Yeah.
prior show,
Whew.
the National County Health Commissioner has concerns. Laura Curran, the
That
first
chain
Democratic
is fucking all over
National
the
County
place.
executive in quite a while.
Not cool.
It's just too big a leap for some.
There's
Or
just
moderate.
crap on it.
It's too big a leap
Oh man,
too
there's
quickly for
crap
some.
in there.
And
I do
they're
not like that.
going to take a wait-and-see approach. And this is kind of epitomizes suburban sensibility, which is another way of saying, you know, which I eat my horse all the time here, is the sensibilities of the swing voters who will decide national elections. And they decide
I
state
didn't do
elections
anything to
if
clean
they're
the
close.
Another
Crankshaft.
issue is the tax cap.
I just
Maybe
fucking ripped
this
it
isn't
out.
quite a red and blue issue as marijuana might be, but
Things that were in there.
the tax cap right now is a flexible cap, and it's going to expire in 2020. People and organizations like the Teachers Union, which put a lot of the new state senators from Long Island and the Hudson Valley into office, don't like the cap, and they first of all want to make it, if we have to have a cap, I think that they're, want a real 2% hard cap for all kinds of issues, including predictability for school districts. But the Senate already passed.
Where's the
a
drive
tax
that was
cap
in there?
that's,
Oh yeah,
permanent
starter
and
clutch,
flexible.
which I
If there's
set
one
on the
issue
floor.
that suburban lawmakers are going to defy the teachers, there's 124 districts on Long Island.
I gotta take a break. Put my knee pads on. This is
A
gonna
lot of
hurt.
teachers union over and
So
over
I
again,
remember I
out
was
here,
going in there.
In America's
It
most
was
segregated large county, 2 counties, is that
kind of like
every district, many districts are
they
different.
had
Many
to put the
districts,
chain
an
around it.
increasing number are poor. They
same
don't have
time.
the fiscal flexibility. Their needs are growing, particularly with a heavy increase in Spanish speakers that need extra attention before they can, start their climb. And these
I don't remember if I had
hard
to
and
take the
fast
starter clutch off to get
one-size-fits-all
in the...
proposals.
What's the
tend to
trick?
punish
Come on, tell me the trick.
poor and
Oh,
poor citizens.
you know what? I'm a retard.
That's a concern.
The
along with, the
I
mother
forgot
of all
that
negotiations, school aid.
this
Which we're talking about
went
today.
in there.
Larry Levy is the
like
executive dean at the National Center for Suburban
this.
Studies at Hofstra. Thank you again.
Probably
for joining us.
want to put clutch in
I want to
first.
thank you for joining us. Our producer has been Tim Williams.
that
Our engineer
on
Dave
the
White.
handle.
I'm Susan Arbetter. You've been listening to the Capitol Press Room.
Get it in there. I think it needs to line up. Yeah, there's no...
Join us
Go.
again for Capitol Press Room,
So,
a production of WCNY
and
Connected,
this
Syracuse.
slides through. Probably won't want to line up very nicely. It's gonna be a bitch.
This is the pulse of the planet. In the old days, and even now in certain parts of the city at Easter time, you might be visited by celebrants with a noisemaker called a clopper. Turn a handle on the clopper and its wooden hammers hit a sounding board. The player would sing a song and, like
There we go.
evil mummers, ask for a donation.
And now I'm going to take a break and read the instructions. Find them in there. I'll point them out before I do it. So it says in there, install the Kickstarter assembly. I already have it in there. Apply some oil to the bearings. There's tons of oil in it. I didn't completely thoroughly clean the crankcase, but I did blow out the oil ports and clean the mating surfaces. Yamaha bond. This is like if you're all ready to go, but it said on there to in the crank assembly, make sure the oil seal is properly seated in the groove. The oil seals of each crank for the crankshaft. That would be these. I'm almost thinking about not putting those in yet because I kind of want to wait. But my plan is, this is the one that goes on this side. This is the smaller one. The bigger one goes over the other side. I am reusing the old one because the inside was still was still soft. It was still spongy, and it didn't leak. But the outside, I cleaned off a little bit, because you can't buy these oil seals anymore. It's a special one. It's the S type, which I believe means that it's got this lip on it here. You could probably get another oil seal that was just flat all the way through to work, and just glue it in there and make it like press right to the inside of the mating surface. And I have acetone in the spray bottle because I'm awesome, and I sprayed it to clean that oil groove out a little extra, just to make sure the oil was out of it, and I blew it with a straw, blew it out. So those should be ready, but I'm thinking I can still lift the crankshaft out a little bit to get the seals in, like right before I do the right before I seal the case, because that's going to be sealed up with Yamaha bond. It does. I mean, I don't think it says it, but you could tell that it had Yamaha bond on it. So I'll hold off on the 3 bond. I'm using 3 bond instead. But it says apply thin coating Yamaha bond to each surface adjacent to the bearings. Apply sealant within blah 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 of the insert. Failure to apply sealant to these areas may result in reduced oil pressure and possibility of crankshaft seizure. That's pretty fucking serious, man. I already know about cleaning the surfaces thoroughly. Gasket shank seal, equivalent. Avoid thick and hard setting materials. Make sure no sealant comes in contact with the oil gallery and the O-ring. Oil gallery and the O-ring. Don't get any into there. But I'm going to thoroughly clean that before I do it. I think I should go ahead and start putting the end of the shaft on these parts. I've all got chilling out over here. Got a middle gear. And I got the bearing. I don't remember where that thing goes. And this is the other set of gears. They're gonna go boop like that, because that's what the clutch goes on. Actually, I think it goes this way, boop, like that, because that's the way the clutch goes, I believe. I think. Put these somewhere. Let me keep getting ready. Oh. So, I found that there was this silly little washer. I believe that it must have came from this side for when you put the gear on. It either went on it that first or last. I'm only hoping that it goes on this side. That just seems to make sense to me, because this here is where the washer, I kept it behind there. These go into the notches, and then this is the nut. It's going to go on this way. That goes on, that holds the shaft on. I don't remember if I should put in one or the other first. I think I should put this in first, because I took this out last. But I put a little bit of oil around it, I cleaned it. I'm not going to go crazy with cleaning this, because it didn't look terrible. I'm going to see if I can get it back on there.
So what we have is an administration that's ignoring not just the warning signs about the future, but the ways that climate change is actively affecting our lives right now.
And remind us of what some of those effects are.
Well, let's just look at the last year. We had the massive, deadly fires in California. These were at least partly due to the fact that the state is warming up.
I remember how hard it was to get it
and
off.
these are a growing threat to the largest state in the country and the largest economy in the country. We had Hurricane
So,
Michael, which slammed the
let's do a
southeast
little
and
bit of
Carolinas
hammering.
with record flooding. That came on the heels of 3 huge storms a
Oh,
year, but just
a little bit of tapping,
all of
actually.
those storms were supercharged by warmer
See if
seas.
the holes on
The
it
polar
up.
vortex
Not
just these
quite.
last couple of weeks, the disruption of that may well be linked to the warming of the Arctic, ironically, causing this massive blast of cold air coming down into the U.S. and killing people.
Yeah, I mean, all of that matters, but how much does it matter what a president does or doesn't say in the State of the Union address? Besides, we're learning now that under Trump, more Americans care about climate change
Holes
than
still line
under
up?
Obama.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
again,
them holes line
the
up
speech
good.
tends to help set the national conversation, and obviously Donald Trump wants to steer that conversation in certain directions and away from others.
Yep.
But you're right, what matters most is what
Alright.
the president does, and in this case, the president
So I can
is
probably
actually very much putting his
put
lack
those
of
bolts
concern
back in.
about
Oh
the climate
no, I
crisis
never cleaned off
into
these
action.
bolts.
It's been a huge part of his agenda
Oh
over
dear.
the last 2 years, and he actually did
I
allude
can't
to
put
that
those
last
back
night.
in. Look
He
at
talked about
that.
his
That looks
success
gross.
in
Alright, I'm gonna
getting
clean them
rid
up
of
real quick.
Power.
The anti-seize on them.
You hear about it in the context of
For this
attempting to suppress people's First Amendment rights.
nice little
And that's
Finger.
a great introduction to it.
So this was a vote by the U.S. Senate, but BDS is a seriously global movement. What will this language from Washington do for the rest of the movement?
If you go to the Middle East, talk to, say, Palestinians in a place like Lebanon, this is a big issue. There's a lot of support for it. Also in Europe is a place where boycotting Israel is really more of a mainstream idea. It plays out differently in American politics, and again, it's not going away here.
The world's Matthew Bell, always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Marco.
I wonder what's gonna happen.
Israelis hold national elections in April, and if he's reelected, Benjamin Netanyahu could become the country's longest-sitting prime minister. Netanyahu is facing corruption allegations, but he's still leading in the polls. Bibi is also known as Mr. Security, but someone else is now vying for that title, a political outsider and a former leader of the Israel Defense Forces. Rebecca Collard reports from Tel Aviv.
Former Army Chief Benny Gantz enters his rally in Tel Aviv to cheers from the crowd. Gantz is seen as Benjamin Netanyahu's toughest competition for prime minister in the April elections. Gantz's slogan is
Quarter turn after finger tight. That's it. You're gonna fucking go crazy on it. It's just not my style.
The chorus of his theme song is
Alright.
There's no more right or left, just Israel before all else.
Gear here. Let's see if my theory might be correct.
The struggle between left and right rips us apart, he tells the crowd. Quarrels between religious and secular divide us. Gantz's new party is called Israel Resilience. And the day after his inaugural campaign event, he nearly doubled in the pool.
Got the battery hooked up to it now. Run a little low. So, I've got the tiny little washer on there. And I could probably pull it off just to test it to see. But it looks like that sets it perfectly where it needs to be. So if it wasn't on there, then that wouldn't fucking work. I can kind of tell. So there goes that. And then there goes that. And I feel like I should clean this off really quick. I'm gonna do that. It's always so slow when you're putting back together a motor. I remember the first time I took my CX apart, I was like super cautious, just like I am right now. This is gonna end up taking like 2 or 3 days, maybe just today and tomorrow. I got a feeling I'm not gonna finish it tonight. My wife's gonna call me and she's gonna be like, honey, come pick me up. Alright, now I remember that wasn't so hard to get off. I had to put a screwdriver into the pinch point, but if I'm turning it this way, it might work out a little even easier this time. We'll see. Hold on a second, I'm gonna get... Okay, I got a screwdriver in there, and it does appear to stop it. And got my brick bar in here, and this nut turned.
But not good to vote for. For the world, Rebecca Collard,
Turn.
Tel Aviv.
It's starting to move now. idea how much force I'm putting on it.
Today's headlines are coming right up. You're with the world.
Alright. Alright, that's good enough for me. It's on there pretty fucking tight. Probably not gonna go flying off anywhere. Because if I put too much force on it, I feel like it would probably stress this out and like snap it. I might get a sense of if I pull this in and out, it doesn't move. This doesn't move. This still turns. So that's good. That still turns. That's the starter clutch. That's the direction it goes. That's the direction that it shouldn't go. Okay, so I'm going to bend the tabs, and then might be about it.
What a gift is that?
That story still ahead here on the world.
That's a good way to bend it up now. Ah, Jesus. Get some fucking players on it.
News with David Harper. President Trump says he may declare as early as next week that 100% of the territory the Islamic State group once held in Iraq and Syria has been retaken. In December, he stunned America's arms with
really
the
tough
withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria, which critics warned would allow an IS resurgence. Turkey's foreign minister, Mevlut Cavusoglu, has expressed that Ankara would oppose a designated safe zone for Kurds in Syria. Terrorist elements were protected.
Okay.
President Trump proposed the safe zone after announcing the U.S. withdrawal.
I don't wanna fucking
has appealed to all sides
hook up the crankshaft.
not to manipulate humanitarian aid for political ends.
That's not a good screwdriver.
Arrange aid deliveries from neighboring countries, and President Maduro sees them as
Say with
part
a
of
blunt,
strategy to destabilize the
flat-headed
government.
screwdriver.
The U.S. says it will
Right, you
cut
should use
millions
a
of
tab.
dollars in military aid to Cameroon over allegations of gross human rights violations by the security forces. Washington says the government of Cameroon must hold the perpetrators to account. French warplanes have carried out fresh attacks in Chad, while the military says a rebel convoy has arrived from Libya.
That'll work.
The French military says it is trying to prevent the destabilization of Chad.
Okay.
Investigators say
I
they've
got it.
successfully recovered a body from the wreckage of a plane that crashed into the sea with the Argentine
Cool.
international footballer.
That is a crankshaft,
The body has
or
not yet been formally
starter
identified.
shaft,
Salah
or
had
whatever.
just moved from the French club Nantes
Now,
to the
this, I'm starting to see that I need to be like really quick about how I put these things together, because the middle gear, I believe, needs some sealant around, maybe. This thing is fucking greasy. See that goopy shit? I didn't clean it. I was a jerk. I didn't clean it. It had foamy cook on it. Amazing. Essentially, it's just a big ass bearing. Put new batteries in my headlight. So there's some of the Yamaha that was on it, and there's crud in the gears. Of course. Of course. I'm not gonna like get all the oil out.
Immediately upon its building, with a powerful barrier in place, El Paso is one of the safest cities in our country. Simply put, walls work and walls save lives.
But it is not so simple, and El Paso residents find themselves having to constantly refute the claim. Monica Ortiz-Uribe is a journalist.
I thought there was a notch in this they were talking about.
She's
So I know it's going to sit in there just like, so there's a little bit of Yamaha bond, and there's a little bit of Yamaha bond.
That neighborhood is called Chihuahuita. It's one of the oldest in the city.
Gotta think about how I'm going to do this.
People there say that the border wall has helped make their neighborhood safer. Before the wall was constructed,
I'll have to clean this with acetone around these edges.
the dry bed of the Rio Grande into the neighborhood and cross back into Mexico.
The residents who lived there said that there was a problem with burglary, sometimes with falls. Their laundry would get stolen off the line.
Laundry
or
would
a
get
bike
stolen.
would go missing. And there were gangs in Mexico that sometimes
Huge fucking bearings. Oh my god.
by police.
Okay.
So the law has proven to be effective in highly
Shit.
urban concentrated areas.
So,
But where it loses
what
effectiveness
I
is in more rural
need to remember is
populated areas.
what those go into. Oh, that is what the. Okay.
Studies have shown that immigrant communities tend to be safer
Into the realm of the manual.
to commit crimes than U.S. citizens. And El Paso is a city of immigrants going back.
Secondary shaft and clutch.
Often people confuse El Paso
Secondary
with
shaft.
city in Mexico, Ciudad Juarez.
A figure A middle gear transmission shaft. So, goes in this way. What does it say about a figure A shaft assembly? Straighten the lock tab and the nut. Prevent the gear from turning. Fire a screwdriver. Did that. Lock nut. 3 Allen bolts. Jelly. Blah, blah, blah. This is to remove it, by the way. How do they say for reinstallation? Remove. Inspection. Inspection. Condition. I didn't inspect that much. Installation. Assembly of the highway primary machining. Engage the chain. Push the starter clutch assembly into position. Insert the primary shaft. Tap lightly with a plastic rubber mallet until it's completely seated. Ensure that the new O-rings, seals are installed. Apply engine oil. Lock washer. Prevent the gear from turning. Do a slot. I did that. New lock washer. Correctly insert holes in the gear. Bend up one side of lock washer. Yep, did it. Install the middle gear assembly and main shaft assembly as described under transmission installation. Chapter 5. Okay, Chapter 5. Assemble the crankcases. Chapter 5. Douchebags. Main shaft disassembly assembly. Slide off the bearing cap. 5th gear. Remove fresh. Already did that. Crankshaft disassembly and assembly. Middle gear assembly inspection. Inspecting condition of the gear, excessive wear, chipping, missing teeth. Check condition of the internals, engage properly. Middle gear, inspect the condition of the bearings, make sure they rotate smoothly, no signs of wear. It told me to remove the stir clip. Oh, hell no. Middle gear was fine. Install the bearings in reverse. Make sure the stir clip is there. Come on, tell me how to put it back in. Oh, gear shift drum. This is a joke. I'm in Chapter 5. Assembly. Quick bearing services. Shaft. Transmission. Line the pin. Install circlip. You dicks. Fuck. Does not tell me how to install it in Chapter 5. That's a fucking joke. Fucking makes me so goddamn mad. Alright, so if I got it in there, son of a bitch. So it's gonna go this way. I gotta clean it off really good first, because I think it needs to be I think I'm gonna have to seal it with yarn bond.
Even when the actress arrived at the Greyhound station, dozens of families have already been escorted inside by guards working for ICE. They're buying one-way tickets to reach family members or sponsors around the country.
One-way tickets.
The parents and children are easy to spot in their brightly colored sweatsuits, parkas, and brandless tennis shoes.
Okay.
ICE. Many are stiff. When you look daily,
second. I'll figure out which way it goes. So I was starting to set it in, and I realized that this right here is an oil seal, and it didn't quite line up because it actually comes off. So something to note. Just move it out a little bit. This circlip here probably has to be a certain direction. This one was in there just like that. And this is the area where I'm thinking I need to clean it and get the Yamaha bond in there when I set it in. So I'm going to do that. Alright, so this Yamaha bond stuff is serious shit. It smells like something I'd paint a gas tank with. It's fucking rough. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, I could kind of tell that I had the Yamaha bond there and there and that. And I'm going to try and rest it right in the place where it should be.
Sent back to Tijuana to wait for his court date, and then they were let out with a packet of information.
And told to return to Mexico.
That.
Exactly. Then they were just released back to Tijuana, where there was a swarm of reporters.
In addition to getting that information packet, some of the people you spoke with said they've been told by border agents to get legal help from a group.
I'm just taking a guess that was open like that.
This was another sort of curious
I don't know if I can tell in the pictures.
Several people told me that the agents who they spoke with told them to go to the offices of and talk to the American lawyers there.
A little picture there. It's pointing. That's in the other end of the case. Why does it say that? Figure 51. Oh, what was it talking about? I didn't see the notch in it. 51. 51. Clips. 2 dowels. 3 wires are properly positioned. Figure 50. Well, that's for removal. What is 51 talking about? Figure 51. Oh, remove the middle drive gear assembly. They were just talking to that. I thought they were talking about that little notch spot. But I believe that notch spot is in a different part. I think it's either there. My light is dying. There's a different one. Ah, that's one where there's a notch that it has to fit in. So yeah, I still gotta clean out the oil from this fucking crap. Whenever I get around to putting the other side of the case in. So I think this ought to be good. Just like that. It's funny that this circlip doesn't go all the way around. Maybe I'll have to watch my old video just to make sure which way it goes. Or I can just fucking send it. Send it. Getting nervous, man. Alright, I'll try to get the other shaft in there. We'll see what it looks like. Stinks. Here's the shaft. And because there is those, I don't know if I have to seal them though. This is the way it goes. Because that's where shit goes. I just don't know. Should I seal that? Or should I just let that be? Oh, they did have it sealed right into there. This doesn't move. Alright, so I'm gonna have to clean these really good because those had Yamaha bond around them, and that's where they went in. And I gotta think about where this locking, this dowel right here went. If it went there or there or there or there. It goes over here, but I gotta remember which side it goes on so that it's facing in the correct way. Okay, taking a break. So I looked into it, and right here is where that pin is going to be up into the lower part of the case. And I got my red light on.
But 17,
So
18 years later, I think
believe
America
the Yamaha
gets
bond
exhausted of that. And
goes
because
into
it doesn't
this
personally
crevice
affect
here.
them, they don't have a husband or a
And I did
brother or a
clean that
sister
out,
or a
but not
friend
very well,
on the
obviously.
battlefields. I think it's unfortunately easy to forget that we are still there. And we're not just in Afghanistan. We have troops around the world still. So, you know, I think that's part of just an awareness as American citizens. Hey, we have men and women in uniform defending us, defending freedom across the globe. We need to remember that.
Jenny Taylor back in the halls of Capitol Hill, where she was last night at the State of the Union address in honor of her husband Brent Taylor, the former mayor of North Ogden, Utah, who was killed last year while serving in Afghanistan. Jenny, thanks very much for speaking with us, and our belated condolences to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
From Manan and Bill Harris Studios at WGBH here in Boston,
Right
I'm
into
Mark
that
Elward.
crack,
We'll be back with you tomorrow.
along this inside edge mainly. I don't think it went all the way around the outside.
The World is a co-production of the BBC World Service, PRI, and WGBH Boston, supported by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. MacFound.org. PRI 2020 donors, including the Roger Borchardt family, whose members believe in fairness and objectivity in news reporting, and Marguerite Steed Hoffman, who values journalism and storytelling that reach across our divides to create a more informed and connected world. And by the WGBH Fund for Environmental Reporting, whose donors include the Grantham Foundation for the Protection of the Environment, supporting a cooperative approach to solving our critical environmental problems while we still can, and the Candida Fund, furthering the values that contribute to a healthy planet, and by the Ives Family Fund.
Definitely recommend using a Q-tip, because the tip of my finger came off. I don't know if it ate into it or what.
I'm Mark Wozniak.
This
Coming
stuff
up on
is
Thursday's
stiff.
morning edition between 5 and 10, we'll go behind the bench with Bill Hoppy to talk about Buffalo Sabres hockey. We'll have a conversation with Samantha Christman on helping those with mental illness. And the Education Commissioner is not happy with the governor's school aid funding numbers. Winter weather advisory till 1 a.m. Occasional rain or freezing rain early, then areas of freezing drizzle overnight, with areas of fog developing after midnight, low in the 30s.
And this is in there like that. Okay, I can see. I just sort of confirmed it for myself, so I feel a little bit better about what I did. See a little square discoloration right there. That's where that notch is. So set it in there like that, and that's good. The gears will begin to mesh, and that one dog is going to have to go into here. I don't know how I'm going to orchestrate getting that straight when I'm putting the fucking case together. I'm going to figure that out probably the hard way. Alright. And on that note, I heard my wife texting me. It's probably going to be a good time to take a break for the day. Maybe I'll get back to it tomorrow. Maybe I don't know. We'll see.
At least once a week to eat out.
So,
even as teenage kids take Waymo. The company's goal, of
if
course,
you're gonna
is to
put
get
the seals in later, you're gonna have a hard time. Just have the seals on the fucking shaft. Go for it. The lower case, I have already put this 3-bond on, and right now I am putting it on this uppercase. And I did clean the shit out of it with acetone, because you gotta clean the surfaces.
Where today's technology, warts and all, is trusted and accepted by paying customers. Another
So,
startup in the Phoenix area is Neuro.
this is going to be a good
It's
time
built a
lapse.
teeny tiny van.
Cattlemen's Beef Association says it's difficult to respond to the plan.
Unless we actually have details, it's hard to truly understand what they could achieve and, more importantly, what the impact would be on us.
Activists supporting the Green New Deal plan 3 weeks of
Okay.
lobbying to get more members of Congress to sign on to
So,
it. Jeff Brady, NPR News.
President Trump appears to be taking a bit
think I
of a
got
wait-and-see
everything.
approach when it comes to a
I did
compromise
the
on border security.
space
Trump
where
telling reporters
the
today, quote, "I hear they're
whatever
working on something. We'll see
what you
what
call
happens."
those
Trump
the
adding, "Border
crankshaft
security, we
rests
have to
on
have it. It's
there
not an option."
on the other half.
Richard Shelby chairs
And there
the
were
Senate
spots where I knew where it
Appropriations
didn't even
Committee,
touch,
says he's
like these
encouraged
greasy
by talks
spots.
after White House meeting today.
I had a very positive conversation with the president and the vice president earlier today. I believe he was very reasonable with us.
The Alabama Republican says the respective sides in the negotiations still have a ways to go, though.
I'll just show it. I left those free because I did them on these spots, and I don't think they're super critical, but I probably also don't want to block the oil passages, which some of them were blocked because the previous installer did it that way. But I got all these mating surfaces done. I don't think you need to go into here because those are actually encapsulated in them, but I did them on here just to stop it from moving around or popping out in case I had to lift the thing off again. Whatever, that's my excuse. And oh, I forgot to do this oil seal, so I got one more to do.
Niagara Falls Mayor Paul Dyster says high winds could force ice.
I have a rag with acetone on it to stop my brush from being destroyed.
This is WBFO News. I'm Mark Wozniak.
Okay, so I don't think I had to go over that, but I did anyway because I did the bottom of it. Everything's greased up. There's grease on these bearing caps also. And I did a test. This right here wants to fall. I did a dry run and I set the case down on it. This goes down like that and it wants to fall into place. And I kind of did the dry run to make sure that I had this in the position where it should be. So, I mean, I'm hoping that it's right because that's in fucking neutral. And that leaves this right here like partially engaged. So, fuck me if it's not right. That'd be weird. Alright, I'm gonna go for it. Okay.
Connections between Trump, his associates, and Russia. The team, which won a Pulitzer Prize last year, formed in the Times Washington Bureau right after Trump's inauguration to investigate emerging issues surrounding the Trump campaign and Russia. By early February, Schmidt and reporters in the team broke the story that Trump campaign aides had repeated contacts with Russian intelligence. In May 2017, Schmidt revealed that Trump had asked FBI Director James Comey to pledge his loyalty and to end the investigation into Michael Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor. Last month, Schmidt was one of the Times reporters on the story that after Trump fired Comey, the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia and posed a threat to America's national security. During the presidential campaign in 2016, Schmidt was the first reporter to write that Hillary Clinton exclusively used a personal email account while she was Secretary of State. Schmidt co-wrote the articles with Emily Steele on Bill O'Reilly's alleged sexual misconduct that led O'Reilly to lose his show on Fox News. Schmidt and Steele were part of a team that won a Pulitzer Prize last year for exposing powerful and wealthy sexual predators.
Basically, there's two dowels that make it a little bit stiff, and it is definitely inside the gear. The fork.
And is now investigating Trump's inaugural committee's spending. How does the picture change when you put both sets of investigations together?
That shit is sealed. As soon as I bolt it up, it'll be really well sealed.
There's a lot of different investigators rummaging around in different parts of his life, his administration, his campaign, his inaugural committee, his business. It's just sort of striking.
I hope I didn't forget anything.
It's one of the harder
This is the point where I fuck, I hope I didn't forget anything.
at this point is that there's just so many different tentacles, and they're all sort of their own language,
Alright,
their own
I'll give a
subjects where you have to
quick look around my inspection end so you can see. That mating surface will probably be compressed. That oil seal looks like I did get shit squeezed all the way around it, which is good. Even that part was sealed. That end of there, that's going to be covered. And that gasket's going to go over that. Probably not much oil would leak out of it anyway. I see why maybe that didn't have to be sealed so much, because that's a cavity where this is the middle gear and that's where oil is going to go. I should probably start getting the bolts in so that it moves it from side to side and lines it up really good. I kind of hope that I can remember which bolts were where. And see right here, it's not mating together all the way. Yeah, I gotta get bolts in it. So I'm gonna look over in the manual here. I don't remember where it was. Probably chapter 4. Do's before the clutch, which doesn't make any sense. Yep. Right there. Alright. Lower part of the case. And to think about it, all turned. The crankcase bearing. Assembly. Prior to installation, all parts coated in oil. Transmission assembly, supply assembly oil, blah blah blah. Be sure locating dowels at each side A. And number 176. There's an oil seal on there. And there's one of the dowels. The other dowels on the other side are properly positioned. Groove each end of the crankshaft. Be sure both looking dowels each side are an oil gallery ring center. They told me not to accidentally plug up the oil gallery. I did not. Clean the crankcase mating surfaces adjacent to the crankshaft bearings with contact cleaner. Apply a thin coat of Yamaha bond to the matings to each surface adjacent to the bearings. Yep. Apply sealant within blah blah blah. Insert. Make sure sealing surfaces are perfectly clean and dry. Apply a light coat of gasket sealer to sealing surfaces of both halves. Cover only flat surfaces, not curved surface bearing surfaces. Oh, well, okay. Make the coating as thin as possible, or the case can shift, hammer out the bearings. I don't know what you mean. Make sure the upper crankcase main bearing inserts are in place and correctly positioned. No, see it comes out. The O-ring gallery, yep. Tap together lightly with a plastic mallet. Do not use a metal hammer. Damage case to make sure number 2 shift fork engages in the correct slot and the transmission. Yep, I'm pretty sure it did. For the table 4, crankcase bolt, respective lengths. Does it say? Okay, this is what I wanted to know. Apply oil to the threads of all bolts. Install on both crankcases and tighten 2 stages. So, 8. Okay. I didn't know what that meant by 8 pounds. And then where's the second stage? Number 1 through 22 first, then 23 through 34 upper. The torque patterns indicated by the bolt number adjacent to the bolt hole. For the upper, for the lowercase. Don't forget number 32. Crankcase breather gasket. Yep, I know all that bullshit. Okay, so they do say from 1 to 22. And they say to start with 8 foot to 17 foot. They said to put oil on them. I don't know about putting oil on them, but I've got anti-seize that I feel very comfortable using. Ah, shit, where'd I lose my fucking... The numbers, come on. Okay, the numbers. If I'm down there, starting with 1 and 2, and then right down the middle. Yep, that makes sense, because usually, like, when you're doing the cams, you do everything that's holding down the bearings there first. So, let me get my bolts organized. I'm going to get some fancy anti-seize lubricant on them. It says to use oil, but I don't know. I feel comfortable with this. And we'll move forward. So, I'm starting to put them in. I decided to put oil on them because it was way easier. So now that I think about it, if I put anti-seize, there's a chance that they could come loose. Because I've had that happen before, because you're kind of guessing on the torque, because you get more torque per tug. But the 2 really shiny bolts, I knew were the ones that were in that oil cavity. And there's 1 and 2, and I'm just putting them in hand tight. I'm going to put them all in hand tight, and then I'm going to tighten them down to the torque.
Supporters, and then it kind of goes away, and they move on to something else. It's not as organized or sustained when they come back after us.
Which one is 3?
They're not looking to try and use little problems in the story to try and undermine the larger part of it. They just say you guys are a bunch of liars, or you're on the take, and move on.
Good news is it seems to be lining up.
The important part of the president's criticisms of the FBI and the decision to open the counterintelligence story is a part of the story that I think sometimes gets overlooked.
And these ones have the washers on them. They said all of the larger 8mm bolts, except for the ones that are inside the oil cavity, have a washer. Don't forget that. Distributes the tension on the...
And what happened at the end of 2017 is that we broke a story about how he had these
I'm getting hungry now.
that he exchanged with another FBI employee,
oh, this one's a little
in which
stiff.
he expressed his political views about Trump.
Okay,
He expressed his political views about a lot of politicians. His views of Trump got the most attention.
I wish I had one of those little T-wrenches.
There's been no evidence that there was political bias in how the
One of these days,
investigation
the
of Trump
huge tool set
was handled, or whether the FBI was lighter on Hillary Clinton because of that. But what it did do is it gave the president enormous ammunition to go after the FBI and to try and question its credibility. And I remember exactly where I was when I found out about
Here's a
this.
good question.
And I knew that
should
for the
I
president, it would be a
put the oil pan back on?
Because it would allow him to say,
or flip it and put the other case bolts in.
These folks,
I should probably put the other case bolts in, because if I don't, I might not get even torque. Yeah, it says in there, it did say in there to go from 23 to 34 and do the top. So, yeah, I'm going to have to flip this bitch over and do that.
It was something that really helped the president's side. And conservatives and Fox News and Sean Hannity really rally against the investigation and start to plant the seeds
These have numbers on them. Oh, I can smell that fucking
in terms
gasket
of
seal.
undermining Mueller's credibility, the FBI's credibility, it was a turning
I have a happy motor. I'm putting lots of love into it.
So what is your reaction when you break a story like the Peter Struck text, and it ends up being ammunition for the president to discredit the FBI? Now, I know you're breaking stories without the intent to have them function on any person's side. You're just trying to get to the facts and to the truth. Nevertheless, when you see it used as a way for Trump to discredit our intelligence agency, what's your reaction?
I think that if you're going to sign up to do this in this atmosphere, you sort of have to go as hard as possible after the facts and sort of watch what happens with them.
Last big bolt.
And as long as your stories
Number 10.
are accurate and are reflective of what happened, that is really all that I can worry about. If I start to worry about how things are going to influence other parts of the story, then you sort of start to head down the path of trying to put maybe one finger
11?
on one side of the scale
11
or another.
is
You don't want to say, well, if I do this, it's going to help this or hurt this. You understand the implications of what you're doing, but
11
as an investigator,
is
it's like, look, I'm just going to follow the facts.
this one and this
they
one.
go and report them.
One of them is not
That
longer
is
than
really
the other.
all that I can control.
I wonder which one's the longer one. I feel like this one might be the
There
longer
will
one.
be
But
right and wrong answers about
the two
what
11s.
happened. Either certain events happened
So,
or didn't. And over
11.
time, they will come out.
And 11.
And as a reporter, I believe I will be
10
judged based on the accuracy of my coverage against what really happened. And if I focus on that,
wait a minute.
then I
Did
will
I grab the right ones?
have done
Nope,
the
I
best
grabbed the wrong
job
ones.
possible. I
These
will
ones are
have
too long.
protected myself, and I will have given our readers the most accurate picture of what's going on. And that's it. That's all I can do. I can't do
That makes more
worry
sense.
beyond it.
Okay.
My guest is New York Times
11.
reporter Michael Schmidt, who has broken major stories about the Mueller investigation and ties
It was
between
confusing.
Trump, his
That's why
associates, and
I saw
Russia.
21 and I thought
After
it
a
was the
break,
last one
we'll talk about a
because
story he broke
there's
during the
22
2016 presidential campaign
bolts, I guess.
that
Or no.
Hillary Clinton, while serving
Maybe
as
I'll read
Secretary
it
of
again
State,
and I'll see. Oh,
exclusively used a personal
22.
email account.
That
I'm
must
Terry
be
Gross, and this is Fresh Air.
this one? Doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't even know. What the hell are you talking about? Where the hell is 22? What the fuck?
The New
Couldn't
Bauer
be
Family
that whole.
Foundation supports WHYY's Fresh Air
I thought that's
and
for
its
the oil
commitment to
pump
sharing
one.
ideas and
So now
encouraging
1,
meaningful
2, 3. I
conversation.
think those are the
Support
oil
for
pump.
NPR
Yeah,
comes
the
from
little
this station
screws.
and from the
Oh,
NPR
wow.
Wine Club, where every bottle tells a
Hmm.
story, and
Hang tight.
NPR shows become wines
Okay,
like
12.
Weekend Edition Cabernet Sauvignon. Available to adults 21 years or older.
Still
Learn more at
this length.
nprwineclub.org. And from
It's
Home
good that I can
Advisor,
see how
matching
long the bolts
homeowners
will
with
be.
home improvement professionals for a variety of home
There's
projects,
crud
from
in it,
minor
of
repairs
course.
to major remodels. Homeowners can read reviews of
I'm
local
not forcing these in.
and
These are going in
appointments
really
online
nice because I
at
cleaned my bolts.
homeadvisor.com.
I didn't like chase the threads, but so that's why I'm encountering some resistance. But I have these very clean bolts. Ah, shit. These ones are really dirty. It's understandable. They give me fucking resistance. Yeah.
This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. Let's get back to my interview
I'll
with
give you
Michael
shit
Schmidt,
whole
a
way.
Washington correspondent for the New York Times, who's been covering the Mueller investigation and connections between Trump, his associates, and Russia. Schmidt was part of two teams that won Pulitzer Prizes last year. One for coverage of Trump and his campaign's ties to Russia, the other for exposing powerful and wealthy sexual predators. The related sexual predator stories he co-wrote were about allegations against Bill O'Reilly. Many of Schmidt's articles about the 2016 presidential campaign and the Trump presidency have had enormous impact. So, one of the stories that you broke was about Hillary's emails. This was in March of 2015 during the campaign. You broke the story that she exclusively used a personal email account while she was Secretary of State, possibly breaking the Federal
free
Records
bond
Act,
is
which
still
requires you
moist.
to preserve
I was a
emails
little
because
worried.
her aides
This would probably be the
take
perfect
action
timing
to have
for
the emails on her personal server preserved on department servers.
15.
What did you
I knew that
originally
they went
think the
out.
significance of that story would
This one, I think, is the longer one.
The evolution of that story was interesting because in the reporting,
Come over to this side.
that there were personal emails of those that the Benghazi
I'm just taking a
committee,
guess.
the committee that the Republicans had set up in the House to investigate.
No, that
the
can't be that
attacks and
one.
basically
My bad.
Hillary Clinton.
It is the shorter one.
And how that was handled. I knew that the committee had these personal email messages, but it wasn't until the end of the reporting, right before I was about to publish, that I learned that she did not have a State Department email account, and she was using this personal account.
Yeah, if I don't
to
flip the
do
case
that
over, this
report.
end's not going to get tight.
So, at the end of that reporting, that was a
16.
pretty significant fact because it showed that her email system had operated very differently than any other government official.
So that story played out in a lot of surprising and
rusty anymore.
major ways. It
I soaked them
helped
in
her lose the election.
WD-40, so
It
hopefully it'll be
helped
like a
President
year
Trump
before it
justify
fucking happens.
firing James Comey
First time I read it through.
because he referred to a memo written by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein criticizing Comey for how
17.
the email investigation was handled by the FBI. What surprised you most about how the story played out?
I guess how long it
I
went
still got a
on.
lot of work to go
I
after I get this
remember
motor going.
A week or so after
Please
the
God, let
story
it run
being
good.
at a dinner with some work
Jesus.
colleagues.
And then please let the transmission work
The
okay.
work colleagues saying to me, do you think the story
18.
will be
Where's number
around
18?
in another week? And
18
I thought that maybe the
is
story
right
had
there,
a
which
month-long
does look kind of
shelf
long,
life
but
at the time, meaning that it would have
bet you
been
that's
over
probably
by
the super
April
long one.
of 2015.
Yep, feels like it.
And I didn't think it
Probably
would have
is.
the legs and continue to have
We'll
the
see
legs
how
it
much,
does even now,
if it
where
goes in all the way.
Republicans are calling for the Justice Department to look at this
number 18,
issue
okay.
once again to
18.
determine whether
Come on,
she should have
baby.
been prosecuted.
Yep, I think I got the
As
right one.
the story of the
Is
Mueller
it taken down for
investigation
it?
and the ties
19,
between Trump, his associates, and
which
Russia
is another one of the
to play
medium
out,
long ones. So the really long
the
6mm was number
more and
18.
more leaks. And, you know, I don't know who
19's
the leakers
the
are, but it seems it's
other.
probably a combination of people who are investigating Trump as well as current and former Trump associates. And, you know, some of the reasons for leaking might be
19.
to settle scores or seek revenge
20.
or to, you know, get to the truth, to make sure Americans know
So
what's
this
really
one
going
is
on. I'm
20.
sure there's a whole range of motivations. How can you explain the amount of leaking that seems to be going on now from, you know, various directions? And I know it's not something you can speak about in detail because it's your job, of course, to protect your sources. But whatever you can tell us about this, like, leaking atmosphere would be really interesting.
One of the unfortunate things about stories based on anonymous sources is that how we got the story and who the sources are often takes on a life
22,
of
which
its
it
own.
said it went 19 and 22. So that funky hole that was labeled right here is
as if I know
other
it's not the
last big bolt
simplistic
that
the
I
idea
got.
of it, but like
Oh,
as if we
and
were sitting
it's
at our desks and the
there.
phone rings and it's the leaker who has the information for us.
Well, I have to confess, I do think that was sometimes how it happens, and I think in fact is sometimes how it happens, isn't it?
As someone that gets to see this play out every day or every few days, the reason
Alright,
that a lot of
now I can
stories
tighten
are
them all
broken
down
is
to
because
torque.
journalists are out there asking people questions.
Then I have to reset.
We are not
This thing will come in
lemons
handy at least here.
sitting
Hold
on
on, I gotta.
things
Okay, so I basically set it for about 9, even though it said 8.7. I go
You've taken on a huge responsibility in the sense that, for
1,
instance, the email story that you broke about
2,
Hillary Clinton helped lead to her
3.
defeat in the election, whereas the stories you've been breaking
Oh,
about
I did these for the wrong torque. These right here were supposed to be higher. My bad. You know what? I'll just go over them like this and
could possibly help lead to the president's impeachment, in the sense that the House
5,
would unlikely impeach him unless they felt there was enough popular support for it, and you could argue that your stories are revealing information that could help lead to popular support. So, I mean, there's a lot resting on your reporting. It's having a huge impact on public opinion.
so I'm just gonna retorque those. It
sits
said
in the
8
White
and 17, so now I'm gonna
How do
do
you deal with that responsibility?
19.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna do.
it's,
What was it again?
If you get something wrong, that's really terrible. If you get it right, it can have a huge impact on the country.
I think
18,
that
so
it
I'm gonna.
comes back
This is
to
17.4,
what
so
I
I'm gonna
was
do 18.
saying earlier
So
about
I'm
how
on
all I can control
20,
is following the
right?
facts.
20's right there.
That is it.
So let's go
Control the
18.
I get that. What about controlling your own anxiety? That could be
2,
less easy. Well, I could, yeah, go ahead.
The Clinton
3,
email coverage, I think, prepared me
4,
for this moment. I
5,
found that the Clintons
6,
are, in some ways, more challenging
7,
to cover than Trump,
8,
just as a journalist, because
9,
they will push back and be so in your face and are ready to litigate and
take it
fight
back
you
down
at
to
every corner. The president, for as loud as
10.
he is less sophisticated in the media area. Hillary Clinton has folks that work for her that are top Washington
That's at
lawyers
9.
that are really
Change
seasoned
to the
PR
10 millimeter.
folks that know how the game works. The president doesn't have that
11.
strong of a bench.
What?
He has a big megaphone.
11.
He stands on the highest point in town. And
11B.
he screams at you and he says, "You're full of it, and you don't know what you're talking about, and you're fake news."
13.
And then he kind of moves along. He doesn't have the
14.
legions behind him in the way that
15.
Clinton does to really
16.
force you to
17.
defend
I don't remember.
and
18.
be willing
What the fuck is 18?
to sustain a real
17.
good fight about what you've written. And that's where
18.
if we're going to write big stories, we're going to have lots of people
19.
pushing back on us.
And you can
20.
control the anxiety of, of
21.
dealing with all of that.
At the end of
And
the
the
day,
last one,
the facts are
which
my
is
best friend. And that if I wed myself to the facts
back up
and pull
there.
down and hold the roots of the facts and follow them, then that is the best protector and shield that I have. And if I get up in the morning and that's what I'm thinking about, and I'm not thinking about
18.
do I like the president, do I not like the president, does something the president do bother me or not bother me? If it's simply like,
So,
okay, we're out here to
I
cover
remember
this story.
when I was putting this together, I was a bit concerned about if I had a good amount of, if I had this seal in right, because the upper part of the seal was not compressed as much as the lower part, but now it has equal pressure all the way around it and the seal looks pretty good. That's pretty badass. And all of my 3-bond is squeezing out at points, and I'm fairly positive that it is sealing. I think it'll be good. That's crazy that it leaks out there, though. That sucks because I must have had oil in it. Fuck. Well, hope for the best, right? You know? And let's see if it looks like it evened out over here. Yeah, those don't look perfect, but I just don't think it really ever looked perfect. That's squeezing out. There, right there, I can see it right in there. I love how that oozed out. All around there, it's squeezed out pretty good. And of course, on the front of the case. Now, I did torque them, like it said, to the correct amount, but I know better. And I'm going to torque them just a little bit more. So, I'll go over it again, because it said to do it in 2 stages, and they didn't give me 2 different torque values for it, so fuck them, not being specific. This bitch is just gonna get torqued.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Little
Like I saw before in a video, a guy was putting together a crankcase, and or maybe it was the cam whatevers, the cam bearing bolts, and he put like a little notch on it and did it a whole half a turn more. So I was kind of like, oh look, loose. Yeah. That's funny. One became completely loose. So that gives you a clue, right?
This is Fresh Air, and if you're just joining us, my guest is Michael Schmidt. He covers national security and federal investigations for the New York Times and has broken many stories pertaining to the Mueller investigation and connections between Trump, his associates, and Russia. Take us back to the very beginning when you started covering connections between Trump, his associates, and Russia. My understanding is, based on what you've said before, is that there was a team of New York Times reporters that got together, and then you sat down.
So I'm doing a quarter of a turn,
and
then I'll feel them and see.
Take us back to that
See,
early period.
Yeah, some of these are here. 11, that one came loose.
When did this unit, if you can call it a unit, start? Where did you fit into it, and what were those early days like?
So right after Trump won,
12,
my colleague Mark Mazzetti, who was an intelligence reporter, really understood and got the severity of the moment. And there had been discussions at the Times to create sort of an investigative group to focus on Trump in the aftermath of the election as he was coming into office, to be based in Washington. And Mazzetti understood the need for this and took on the role as the editor of this group. And there were several reporters that were assembled into it. I was one of them. And we basically, in hindsight, I think laughingly would say
now
that
they all feel pretty good.
At first, because we didn't really know what the story was.
Loosies. I'll just check one again.
We knew that with the president coming
kind of came loose again.
There was going to be a lot of different areas to look at. We knew there was these emerging questions about Russia, what Russia had done in the election, and we basically set out throughout the transition and then after January 20th of 2017 to focus on this. We were initially going to focus on a lot of different issues of what was going on in the administration, other departments. How was this operating? What did the Trump administration really look like? What did this mean for education policy or housing policy and such? Very quickly, everything we did was consumed by the Russia investigation. And
I'm going at this with a very light hand.
And that basically became the Russia team.
Like,
and
just
we spent
like my pinky.
The early parts of 2017 trying to feel our way through the story. And the more that time went on, the better handle that we sort of got on it. And we're able to keep ourselves, we hope, or we think, sort of at the front of the line in terms of the coverage on it.
What are the odds you think we'll actually see Mueller's report? And part of what I'm wondering here is, I've been wondering if
So back
the
to
report
1.
is being backed up
Tight still.
in outside locations in case
I'm really not
the
putting force on
Attorney
it. I'm just going to
General
feel it,
decides
see if it
not
moves.
to make the report published, or
That one
decides
moved.
to just like put it in the drawer, or just release excerpts of it. When I say published, I mean just like released to the public. Are there people like backing it up and planning to leak it if the Attorney General doesn't make it available?
So, I think there's some misconceptions about the report that are important to sort of clear up. We think of
If it doesn't move for
I think
just a
many
little
people
bit,
do because
then I
of the
consider it a
Starr
good one.
report. Ken Starr,
Keep in mind, I'm not
independent
like super
counsel,
experienced,
was able to
but
send
I've put together
a fully
some
throated
crankcases
report that
before.
eventually
There's never one
turns into a book
this elaborate that was like a
to
split
Congress about the
case with
investigations
everything
of
in
Bill
it.
Clinton.
I just figure these are.
What Ken Starr operated under the independent
I didn't want to
counsel
talk about it,
statute
but
does not exist
I had a
anymore.
feeling that maybe I didn't
That
tighten
enabled
my valve
a report
cover
like that
on
to
well,
go to Congress.
because before
We're
I took
under
the
a
bike
different
apart,
set of rules today.
put my
We're under
finger
this
on the
special
fucking bowl
counsel statute.
on these
So it's
things here that come all
basically
the
a
way through,
regulation that creates
and it came
special
off with my
counsel.
finger.
And
But I'm gonna
there's
forget about
nothing
that now because I'm moving on.
in the
These things are already apart
rules
and back
laws
together.
that allows Bob Mueller
I'm gonna flip
to
it,
write
and we're gonna put in the
a
other case
report
bolts. More
as long as
shit
he
has
wants
squeezed out,
and give
I
it to
see, which
Congress.
is fine. It's cool.
All he can
That was
do
me.
is
This bastard's
report
gonna be
to the
fucking
Attorney
heavy
General
now.
about who he
Son of a
prosecuted,
bitch.
who he didn't prosecute, and what he found.
Oh,
The Attorney General is only required to tell Congress those instances
Jesus.
in which
Come on.
Mueller wanted to take investigative measures or moved, like indict someone, and was stopped from doing it.
How did this squeeze through? Oh my god, that was the shifter that poked through. I'm a retard. Don't do that.
Problem is that the public really wants an accounting of what went on. They want a 9/11 style commission answer to what happened. But that doesn't
Where do
exist.
you pick up the motor?
So what will happen?
How do you
How
do
much
that?
will Congress get? It's not
All
really
right.
clear, and it's not a
Whew.
it's not
Okay.
like he
I don't
has
want this
ability
fucker to
just
fall out, so I'm
hand
just gonna leave it
over
like that.
everything that he found
Whew.
to the hill, and for the
See how
hill
much
to do
oil
whatever they want
slowly
with
leaking
that.
out?
That structure is
Okay.
not there. When Janet Reno in 1999
Give me a minute to get my
created
bolts ready.
this, you have to understand that
And I gotta start
after
with
Ken Starr is
23
done,
and
there's
I know,
sort of a
yeah,
belief on
23
both
and
sides of
whatever
the
and
aisle
go
that he had
through
too
here.
much
So
authority, too much power, and went too
Whew.
far. So in
Give me a second.
1999,
All right.
Lizzo's
I
cheerfulness
have
or little
put a little bit of oil on them, and we're going with 23,
Ken Tucker
which is a
reviewed
short one.
singles by Lizzo,
Uh-oh.
Lil Peep, and 21
Not that
Savage.
short.
If you'd like to catch up on
My
fresh air
bad.
interviews you
So,
missed, like our interview
it's
with
one of the
Brenda
medium-sized
Fox, chief
ones,
copy editor Benjamin
apparently.
Dreyer, who was described in the Washington Post as
It's
the
pretty
unofficial
easy to tell
language
which screws
guru
are supposed to go
on
in
Twitter,
where. I
and has
mean,
written a new book
it
about
said to
clarity and style
diagram
that
them,
requires
but
English.
I
Or an
just
interview with James
took
Blaylock
pictures,
about photographing places
and I
people
accidentally
affected by
forgot
the
to
rising waters and
take pictures of
wildfires
these ones, so
associated
I
with
was a little
climate
more
change.
confused. And
Check
it
out our
wasn't
podcast. You'll
obvious
find
right
lots
here.
of fresh air
I can
interviews.
tell.
Fresh Air's executive
Oh,
producer is Danny Miller. Our interviews and
So after I
reviews
get this
produced and
part
edited by
together,
Amy Sallet, Phyllis Myers,
I
Sam
guess
Brigger,
I could
Lauren
continue
Kramer,
on to
Heidi
put the
Simon,
other
Teresa
side
Madden,
covers and
Luke
shit
Sadie,
on,
Thea Challoner, and Seth Kelly.
like the alternator
And
and
Tariq
shit.
Rose.
But after that, before I put the head on, I gotta get the frame cleaned up. So I'm gonna have a lot of busy work before I can even test the compression on it, which is fine. It all comes into play, it all works out. 3, 24, 25 looks like a shorty, I think. Nope, it's a long one.
Support for NPR
There's shorties and
comes from
long
this
ones.
station. And from the School of the New York Times.
25.
We're a 2-week summer academy for high school students who want to
Socket.
live and learn in New York and Washington, D.C. while studying.
It tells you in the
Times
diagram
journals.
if it was a 6 or an 8
Application info
millimeter.
at nytedu.com. And from Creative
Really
Planning,
smell
an
that
independent
fucking
wealth management
sealant.
firm taking a
Oh
financial
my
planning-led
god.
approach to managing clients'
There's
investments.
ventilation here, right? 26 is probably a short one.
Creativeplanning.com/NPR. Creative Planning,
Probably.
wealth management movement redefined.
6 is a short one.
This is 88.7 FM WBFO, your NPR
Surprised there
station.
weren't
I'm Mark
washers on the top.
Wozniak. Coming up on Friday's morning.
I would have had
edition,
them in the
between
bag,
5
so
and 10 a.m. we'll
I
have
know I'm
Theater
missing
Talk.
any.
Nick Lipper reports on Mississauga Chows and what Northland Workforce Training Center can do to address Iran's soon-to-be unemployed 300 workers.
27, which looks like might be a short one.
Rain showers with a chance of
Yep,
snow showers
it's a
late with
short.
a low in the mid-20s
6
and winds
in
increasing
bulk.
the gust up to 60 miles
I'm
per
gonna
hour.
sit down and take it easy.
Friday.
Because I can. 7. I'm gonna move this over. Better view.
WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo,
I think somebody might be
WOLN
here.
Olean, WUBJ Jamestown, and WNED
Check it out.
FMHD.
It was my neighbor, not my wife.
Welcome to the Capitol Press Room
She
for
hasn't said
Thursday,
anything all
February
day.
7th. I'm Susan
I
Arbetter.
feel like this one might be the long one. Oh no.
Worse news.
29.
We're going to discuss the
No.
$2.3 billion budget
This
gap
one
that
might
was announced
be.
on Monday, as well as
Yep,
some of the latest
28
numbers.
is one of the
Housing counseling
short
is not in the governor's
8
executive
millimeters.
budget. We're going to discuss how this program keeps people in foreclosure in their homes and the social cost of carbon. One of the ways the state
By the way, this is the only gasket that I couldn't get in a kit. Besides the middle gear, I had to buy that gasket separately. And this one right here was perfect. I didn't wreck it, so I'm just popping it right on. It's probably the least important one. It just has to seal air because you'll lose oil pressure if you don't seal. Oil seals very well. But you'll get oil pressure no matter what. I never thought that affected any performance so much. 28, 29 looks like a long one.
Lawmakers come up with in border
Definitely
security
is.
negotiations before he agrees to any deal on government funding. Here's E. Sharasco is more from the White House.
Lawmakers from both parties are attempting to hash out a compromise to avoid another government shutdown.
They're gonna
Trump
shut
says
down the
his
fucking
support will
government again. I
depend on
can't
the
wait.
final details of the legislation.
But I certainly hear that they're working on something, and both
9.
sides are moving along. We'll see what happens. We need border security. We have to have it. It's not an option.
Trump has repeatedly said any deal must include a
30.
border wall. Some Democrats have
That
said they
one
might be open to supporting
could be one
additional
of the longer
fencing or
ones.
barriers in certain places.
30.
If no agreement is
Yep.
reached, funding
One
for
of the
parts of
longer
the government
ones.
will run out next week. Aisha Roscoe, NPR News,
I totally forgot
the
to
White
clean the
House.
middle gear too.
Justice
It's
Department says acting
sitting in the
Attorney
kitchen
General Matthew
in my
Whitaker
oil
will not
pan,
appear before the House Judiciary Committee
draining
tomorrow.
slowly
That
because
is
it's
unless the panel promises to not issue him a subpoena.
31.
NPR's Ryan Lucas.
Not
The
a
pushback
medium
from the
one.
Justice Department comes
I
hours
feel like
after the
that
House
one might
Judiciary
have the
Committee
clip on
voted
it,
on party
but
lines to approve a tentative subpoena for Whitaker.
I had the
It
clip
allows
on
the panel's
one of the
Democratic
small ones.
chairman,
I
Jerry
think that
Nadler,
might be the
to
very
issue the
last bolt
subpoena
that I
if
put in.
Whitaker fails to appear or if he refuses to answer certain questions, many of them related to Whitaker's communications with
Where
the
is it?
president.
30.
The Justice Department says in a letter
31.
that the subpoena threat is a breach of the DOJ's agreement for Whitaker to appear voluntarily. It also calls on the committee to guarantee in writing
2.
that it will not issue the subpoena before or during the acting attorney general's planned appearance.
They said don't
Without
forget
such an
32.
assurance, the department
I'm
says
not forgetting
Whitaker
it.
will not show up for the hearing. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
Baseball Hall of Famer Frank Robinson has died. Robinson, who became the first African-American manager of the sport, dying at his home in California. Robinson had a more than 20-year career in the majors. He played with 5 teams before he then began managing the Cleveland Indians in 1975. In this 2005 interview on NPR's All Things Considered, he talked about his
And
career,
33.
then job as manager of the Washington Nationals.
I would say everybody in that clubhouse out there, every player, which is very unusual, I feel like I
Where's
can
my clue that
kid with and joke with.
might
And
be
they can do the same with me. So
one of
that's
this
what
one?
makes it so nice
I
about
can't
it
tell.
this year.
Robinson
Mark.
was inducted into the Baseball
I'm just
Hall
taking a
of Fame
guess that
in
number
1982,
34 was the
joining
one that had the
other
wire
groundbreaking
clip on
African-American
it.
athletes. Frank
I think it's a
Robinson
pretty
was
good
83
assumption.
years old. Two big Southern
Right.
banks are tying the knot.
The clip
BB&T and
hook on it,
SunTrust
because
announced
right on
they're
the end, that
combining in
seems
an
like the place
all-stock
where you
deal
want to
worth
have
an
it.
estimated $66 billion. The banks announced today the combined company will be the 6th biggest
Yeah,
bank in
maybe
the
it
U.S.
is. I don't really know.
A down day on Wall Street today.
I think
the Dow
it
Jones
is.
Industrial Average closed down
That was the hook
220 points.
over
The
there that
Nasdaq fell
held
86 points. The S&P 500 was down
the break.
25 points. This is
Big
NPR.
switch bearing.
This is WBFO News. I'm Mark Wozniak. The University of Buffalo School of Pharmacy and a local elected official are teaming up to distribute bags designed to deactivate drugs so that they may be safely disposed of. WBFO's Michael Mrziak has more.
Oh, just like that.
Launched students at UB's School of Pharmacy
Isn't
offered a
it?
demonstration displaying the drugs in a bag designed to render all prescriptions or other unwanted drugs.
I think that it goes on like this because you can still get that on. It's gonna hook shit, and that little stopper goes there like that. I'm just taking a guess. That's probably how it goes because I don't see a lot of shit right there. Alright, so now we're going to bust out the old torque wrench. And I'm just gonna say these ones are supposed to be
They'll distribute them at events including community
down to
office
10,
hours scheduled in towns within his district.
And we also
10,
do a lot of events in partnership with
9.
the senior community. Again,
So,
as we know, that community in particular
9 pounds
has
is not very
a lot
much.
of
24.
opioids
God,
in terms
now
of
I
their
have to switch to
treatment.
this.
It's the main source of where we've heard stories of people, nieces
Fuck
and
this.
nephews and others going into medicine cabinets if those can get
I was
out.
doing
He's
this
also
by
hosting
hand.
a couple of Narcan training courses later this month. February
Like,
19th at North
the
Buffalo
torque of
Community
my
Center,
hand is
and
like
Wednesday, February 27th at the Brighton Volunteer Fire Company number
5,
5 in the town of Tonawanda.
6.
Michael Mrziak, WBFO News.
Support for NPR comes from
7,
NPR stations. Other
8,
contributors include the John D. and Catherine T.
9,
MacArthur Foundation, recognizing exceptionally creative individuals. This year's MacArthur Fellows, for
30.
more information, are at
Oh, now my wife's calling me.
and the listeners who support this NPR station.
Answer the phone, hold on. That was not my wife calling me. That's
Well,
bullshit.
it is a big deal. I mean, the New York State budget is large, $175 billion. So it's obviously
Back to
just
doing what I do
a
best.
fraction of
Hand
that.
torquing
But, the
bolts.
key point here is that it's a huge drop-off from projections, and we haven't seen this kind of revenue decline
4,
in many, many years. So, we always track on a monthly basis what's happening with revenue and
5,
spending. We saw in December that revenue was off, and the division of budget lowered their projections based on that. Close to 500 million, 400 million plus change. But then in January, this big drop is 2.3 billion. So that certainly wasn't anticipated. And as we get into the budget negotiations, the serious part that will, kick off very shortly, really has started now with the hearings. That certainly is going to make it a much more difficult negotiating process.
Do you agree with the governor that New York faces this budget hole primarily because of the changes in SALT deductibility?
I think that's the most significant factor, and it's hard to, some
Yeah,
folks
they
have
did get
asked
loose.
since the announcement, what percentage of it? You can't really
23.
quantify, but I do agree with the governor that would appear to be the most significant contributing factor. Why? That's probably the biggest change in the landscape that would affect taxpayer behavior. Where we've seen it be so different at the end of 18 into 19 compared to other years, and we certainly know anecdotally. You always hear some of this, but more than ever with the cap on state and local tax deductibility, you certainly have heard of people deciding, to change their domicile, change where they live. Now, if it's a middle class person with just a home, they may be moving, right? We don't want them to, but sometimes we hear about that. But if you're in that category, and remember the governor's chart, I think it was most telling. 1% of the taxpayers carry 46% of the personal.
It is remarkable, yeah.
It's remarkable. So you lose a few of those. You don't need to lose too many billionaires or multimillionaires to have a dramatic impact in the total revenue coming to the state. And if you are in that category, you probably already have one or two other, homes somewhere else. Typically
they're not moving at all.
It's not that hard these days. To just, I'm sure that many of the accountants are saying. Change your residence, move, and you could certainly with technology and so on, if you're still doing the business, you could do it from another location. So,
not moving.
Yes, I think the governor is right to say
barely
SALT
moving.
continues to be a real challenge for New York, not just
I
New York,
do not
but
want to
he
overtorque
mentioned the other states
these.
as well, and made the political connection there.
30.
Look, the market volatility on Wall Street which certainly, you know, hurt our pension fund at the end of December.
3.
That probably contributed some of this as well. There are other aspects of the federal tax
Okay.
policy, but I do
I'm pretty
think
sure that's it.
is probably
Yep,
the most
that one's
significant
good.
impact
It's good.
on taxpayer behavior, which at this point is an unexpected negative for us.
Just use my finger.
Well, unexpected in terms of the numbers. Wait, I think we've been warning for a
Couple
while.
of my fingers.
Yeah. We're not sure what it means.
Right.
But the numbers that came in January.
So, that is how I believe you assemble Crankcase. As far as I know, things turn, things move. That's good. Still gotta flip it over, and I know that doesn't do anything now. Now that I know how it works. That there should still be stiff as fuck, I think. Oh, that's the starter clutch. Yep, that's right. That's the starter clutch. There's my... Oh, look at that. So, that moves my clutch. I know now that had to be why my fucking Kickstarter didn't work, because that only moves the clutch. And it's in neutral right now. So that's the only way it could have moved the crank. This is connected to the crank. Funny stuff, right? Jesus Christ. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna next stuff, maybe I'll make it a separate video because I just want to put this one up and take a break for the day. Special oil tube. I have to buy a new clutch. The alternator flywheel still has the bolt in it, bent. I have to cut that and just pull it out. It's no big deal. Hope I don't find like parts sitting around that I forgot. That would be really fucking stupid. Oh, middle gear. Got the bag of bolts for that. These are all the bolts that held the fucking motor on. Cleaned all them up. And oh yeah, the advance mechanism. That's gonna be fun. Hopefully I can get it on there in such a way that it's still in time. I kind of remember it was just slightly to the left. Alright, so that's the end of that one. And now you can see how easy it was to pull it apart and put it back together. I'm really surprised. This is a relatively simple motor, and I was intimidated at first, but putting it back together wasn't that bad. Alright, so we'll see you next time.